Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome to the Sports Court. I'm Gregory Beatty. Alongside Eddie Cox is in the house. Brooks is in the house. DC. DC is in Baltimore.
Yeah, DC and
DC and Baltimore. I see you. I see you. Hey, but a lot going on in the sports world, of course. Of course, you know, we are nearing the start of the NFL season. Once again, you're listening to the Sports Court. I'm Gregory Beatty alongside Eddie Cox. And the baseball season is in full effect, getting closer and closer to the playoffs. The Astros are faltering right now. Eddie will definitely talk about the Astros. It seems like if they play the Kansas City Royals, they would probably be under 500 right now as far as that's concerned. But they need to find a way. They've been in a funk for pretty much the last 3 weeks. The Astros need to find a way to get out of this funk and get back in it and get back into the groove of things, because the Oakland A's, they're a team they've been faltering as well, and they've been in a funk as well. So the Astros should be about 6.5, 7.5 games up right now if you consider them losing to the Royals like that, a team that's way below 500, one of the worst teams in baseball, even though they have their moments. But the Astros would be 6.5, 7.5 games up if they handle their business against the team that they're supposed to handle their business against. But because the A's have been losing as well, they've lost, they're 2-7 in their last 9 games. The Astros, I think, are like 4-6. And you got to watch for the Mariners. The Mariners are playing the A's today, as a matter of fact. And I don't know the score of that game. Maybe we'll figure it out in a little while here. We'll see what's going on the scoreboard, the MLB scoreboard, that is. And the Mariners are creeping right back in it as well. The Mariners, I think, going into today was 5.5 games behind the Astros. So the Astros better get it in gear. Of course, they're playing without Bregman, of course. He's on the mend. He should be coming back very soon. And they have some new kids that they brought up, and that's doing well. And, of course, Bregman, the addition of Bregman and then Tucker. Eddie?
Yeah. Now, Tucker, I'm hearing today, he's going to be out of the game COVID-19 for COVID-19 reasons. I think he actually tested positive. So if you were thinking Kyle Tucker was going to be returning to the lineup, not so fast. He's going to be out. COVID-19 and the hits keep coming for the Astros. They really need to find a way to bounce back. It's not a must-win game, but they really need to win this ball game. And some people may say it's gut check time for these guys.
Mm-hmm.
They got to figure
out.
I
would agree with that.
Are they going to be able to dig down and play good baseball no matter what the circumstances surrounding the game are? Whether it's just a lackluster series against the Royals or a team that's a bottom dweller, or if it's the Dodgers, the Red Sox, one of these premier teams. Either way, they're going to need to step up, because when the playoffs come around, if they catch themselves spiraling like they seem to do in some of these games where they can't throw a strike, they can't get a hit when they need it, they can't get the runners across the plate, if they find themselves spiraling like that in the playoffs, it's going to be a huge disappointment whenever they're out and sitting at home and watching some of these other teams that we've been talking about that the Astros are better than, watching some of them other teams play deep into the tournament.
I concur. Now, with Bregman coming back, and of course Kyle Tucker, but Bregman coming back, of course what you're going to get in the lineup, you're going to get a veteran hitter who's only going to lengthen that lineup, that already dangerous lineup, the best offense in baseball. I mean, of course, we're not going to talk about the red-hot Yankees right now, the red-hot Boston Red Sox, and the Yankees are still 4 games behind Tampa Bay. That's how good Tampa Bay is. And, of course, the Giants are doing what they're doing, and they're 80-48. Think about that. But the Astros, when Bregman comes back, Bregman is going to give them that presence in the lineup, because one thing you notice about Bregman as well, not only is he a great hitter, and it may take him a while to get back in his groove in that regard, but he's going to be selective on his pitches, and he's going to make the pitcher work, so he's going to add that added stress on the opposing pitcher and really, really, really probably get him that pitch count up. And so, because he's going to be very disciplined at the plate. So he's going to bring you that. And, of course, he's a former All-Star. So that should help. That should help right there. So we shall see. Of course, there's a lot of NFL. And we can talk more Astros in a bit. But, of course, the NFL.
Yeah, we can loop back around, absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, is there anything you want to add about the Astros
No,
there?
go ahead. I mean, we can get into NFL
in case we
football.
don't get back around to it?
Oh, we will get back around to it, I guarantee it. We're
That's
not going to
up.
forget to talk about the Astros or to get a little bit deeper or maybe answer some questions. But with the NFL preseason in full swing, and I think you and I both are kind of in the same boat when you talk about the teams that we root for. Fans here, a fan here, the Houston Texans, and Greg, he's a fan of the Dallas Cowboys. Both teams coming off of disappointed seasons. Both teams have their own types of internal issues. We've talked about at length This is, I feel like, a make it or break it year for Mike McCarthy. And, the Texans are trying to do a complete rebuild. Those are two different things, but there is some type of drama with with both teams. You got Deshaun Watson and his drama. You got the Cowboys being showcased on Hard Knocks. So there is drama. There is going to be cameras around catching every bit of it in the preseason. And right now, I'm telling you, Greg, it's got me juiced up, man. Especially when your team is coming off a disappointing season. We want to see wins. We want to see players making plays. And so far, I'd say for both teams, that maybe that thirst has been satisfied a little bit. It's been quenched a little bit. We've seen some plays from both teams. We've seen guys step up and do things that weren't being done last year. And I think as a Cowboys fan, real quick, Greg, you're just happy that so far everybody's staying healthy. And it looks like with no secrets or anything being held back from the Cowboys, that things are going to kick off week one with, a loaded deck and a loaded gun, and everybody's going to be ready to go, Dak and company, for the Dallas Cowboys.
You're definitely my co-host because you know me well. And that is for sure. And that's really my thinking right now, just going into the season healthy. Because to be honest with you, Eddie, I really haven't been too impressed with what I've seen from the Cowboys thus far. They've been a bit stagnant in my opinion. I've seen some flashes here and there. There are definitely some talented players on the team. Of course, you still need to get DeMarcus Lawrence back in the fold. Opposite, I made the bold prediction last week about Randy Gregory at least getting 12 sacks this year. So the talent is there. Trayvon Diggs in the defensive backfield, some talented rookies. I have seen some flashes from some rookies, and, of course, Micah Parsons, who's been very impressive to me. And, I just want him to get into the season healthy as well, especially with him playing defense, even when I was watching part of that game against the Texans. And I don't put too much stock in preseason. We'll definitely talk about the quarterbacks, the rookie quarterbacks here in a bit. And just quarterback situations in general and just different teams or whatever. But we'll definitely talk more NFL in that regard. But as far as Michael Parsons, I don't want to see him get injured. So when I was watching that game, I was like, okay, get him in there, let him play a few series, get him out. But
so if Coach Gregory Beatty's on the sidelines coaching the linebackers, he's like, Coach, one more series. Yeah. Are you holding him out, or are you gonna let him get some snaps in? He's still a young player. I think every snap is valuable for a kid his age, especially when you're gonna take the reins of the entire defense for the Dallas Cowboys. That's huge, a huge job.
I'm about learning on the fly. I've actually said that about just quarterbacks, but just players in general. I'm about learning and actually going through live reps to get that done. But right now, I think I've seen enough from him. The same thing I was saying about Jalen Green, about that practice league when he got injured. I was like, get him out of there. We'll see him game one, whenever that is, of the regular season. And just get that tight hamstring together. But I've seen enough. And so with Michael Parsons, I've seen enough. And it's about, obviously, you definitely want to have him. You want to have the chemistry, and you want the defense to have gel by the first game, and him being able to recognize certain formations and offenses and the certain calls to make to put his team in position to be in the best position to succeed and yada, yada. So hopefully he's getting a lot of that in practice, even in the scrimmages against other teams. But get him in there for like 3 or 4 series at this point. Let him run around, make a few tackles, make a few calls, do a few things, see a few things, and then get him out at this point. So I don't know how much he's going to play the next game, but I like your point about the Cowboys just going into the season healthy, because obviously we have not seen Dak Prescott and we have not seen Ezekiel Elliott to this point. So even though your Texans put it on this other day, 20-14. No, we don't need to.
When you're watching the number 2,
I would like to see Dak get a series, but not with the shoulder like that. No.
You don't want to risk it, and especially with somebody like Dak, especially the quarterback. I have to go back and look. I'm not sure if everybody up front started that game. You don't want to put a quarterback out there with an inexperienced offensive line, especially, your prized possession in Dak Prescott.
We're definitely going to talk about that with the rookie quarterbacks.
Definitely. But looking at the Cowboys, even though they're 0-3 here in the preseason, the first loss is in the Hall of Fame game. That really is one game that you could say coaches go into and they don't really try to win. They'll tell you they do, but reserves are the back end of the roster, play the majority of the game. You hardly see any first or second string players in that game. But I've seen a lot of back-end roster development from this Dallas Cowboys team. That's just what I see with my eyes, and the in-depth look that you're getting behind the scenes with Hard Knocks. You can tell the coaches, they've turned the intensity up.
Okay, so
And
I haven't watched Hard Knocks.
They're setting the
So school me
bar.
on Hard
They're
Knocks.
setting the bar high, and maybe this is what happens in every NFL locker room. But they're talking about Super Bowl or bust, and it's not even in the sense like, oh, we could get there. It's if we don't win the Super Bowl, it is an utter
failed
failure.
season.
Yeah, it's a failed season.
Pretty much been like that for the Cowboys the last few years, but definitely this year.
To hear Mike McCarthy deliver that message to his players and to see them respond on the practice field, it gives me hope that maybe he is the right guy. And you see young guys developing. You see them bringing in, back of the roster guys. Cedric Wilson, a guy who I know is going to help them at the wide receiver position, give them depth, especially when you have guys who can get banged up like a CeeDee Lamb or an Amari Cooper. He may play some very meaningful snaps for the Dallas Cowboys. And then Tony Pollard. Tony Pollard is a guy that I think he starts for a lot of NFL teams.
Absolutely.
And if he's not behind Zeke Elliott, we might be talking about him going near the top of some team's fantasy.
Well, he still may.
Or some people's
fantasy.
Because
he's going to get a lot of run.
Well, I know he's one of the number one
handcuffs.
But what I'm saying is I like the guy's talent. I like the way he runs the football. I like the way he catches the ball to the backfield. You can see how deadly he is in the screen game. A guy that knows how to use his linemen, not just to block, but to hide himself from defenders. And all he needs is a little bit of a crease, and he can get in it and get into pay dirt. He showed that in the game on Saturday. Tony Pollard is a player that the Cowboys can be really excited about, and that is a really good plan B if something were to go wrong with Ezekiel Elliott. And then also all eyes on Blake Jarwin. This is the year I feel like he's got to step it up. Coming off the big ankle injury or lower leg injury.
Knee injury.
There's a lot of rumblings and talk about he could be a fantasy sleeper tight end. That could really lean on him a lot this year. This could be his year to put up the numbers that match his athletic prowess that he has if he can just stay healthy. But so far, I like what I've seen from him as well. So good things for the Cowboys, in particular on the offensive side. And then when you've got Micah Parsons on defense, I think you're heading in the right direction.
Right, and I say Micah Parsons, but of course he still has to prove himself during the regular season.
And they're still going to have to get better on that back
Lawrence,
end.
And right. Hopefully Trayvon Diggs takes another step. And I just realized my boy Malik Hooker was on the Cowboys. If only he could stay healthy. First-round draft pick by the Colts from Ohio State, a ball hawk, but he can't stay healthy. He's blown out a knee. I know once at least, maybe twice, but I know he's blown out an Achilles. But the times he's been on the field, he's flashed. I mean, he just can't stay healthy. But if his legs are okay, that may be a sleeper pickup for the Cowboys. Probably by sometimes into the season when he's really feeling good with his legs and things of that sort. But I like the behind the scenes that you gave me about the Cowboys on Hard Knocks and what McCarthy is doing with that team. So you're seeing something in him that the team is motivated. They seem like they like playing for him, and they're really going to try to reach their potential this year.
They're thrilled to get everybody back healthy.
Yes, and the thing about it is that's why I was going to go right. Now you have Dak coming back. The expectations should be that high. You have Amari Cooper. You have everybody back in the fold. You don't have a disgruntled quarterback or a team that doesn't know if he's going to be their quarterback even moving forward, even though, of course, you have to worry about each day, be where your shoes at, or be where be where your feet at. But the thing about it is they're in a good position right now, man, and they're going to have to make the best of it. And we'll see if that can carry over with Dak and all these guys. We'll see if that can carry over into the season, and they can live up to that potential.
Hey, if they get after the passer on defense, I think they're going to be just fine on offense. This is an offense that consistently over the past few years, when they're healthy, they finish near the top of the league in yards and scoring. So I think they've done nothing but add to their depth. When you talk about CeeDee Lamb, I can't wait to see this explosive kid field catches on Sunday. But if that defense can just be middle of the road and get after the passer, force some turnovers, I like what they did on the back end with the additions of DeMonte KZ. You get Keanu Neal, a guy who's formerly a safety. You make him a middle linebacker, and now he's the middle linebacker for your defense. I think that adds speed to that middle of the field area, which whenever you've got a lot of speed around that makes things really tough for those slot receivers and those tight ends that have been given NFL defenses headaches and fits for the past few seasons.
And, to your point about Blake Jarwin, of course, he's coming off of that knee injury. But with Dak Prescott back in the fold, he can definitely be a weapon that you can utilize as one of those athletic tight ends, like you say, that can get down the seam, that can stretch the defense to go along with those three receivers. And again, I'm going to say it again, if Malik Hooker can get healthy, the Cowboys have a steal. He's only like about, 25, 26 right now. If those legs are healthy, they can have a steal at free safety. I just realized he was there. So the talent is there. Now, of course, you haven't had your full complement of players playing in preseason. That's why I don't put too much stock in the preseason. No. I try to really hone in on people staying healthy and seeing the youngsters and seeing how they're progressing and things of that sort, and just seeing the overall attitude of the team. And so I like the behind the scenes that you get that you've given me. I really don't want to judge them until they have Dak and Zeke on the field with all their linemen. Of course, game one, everybody's going to be amped up. They're going to be ready. That defense is going to be ready to prove that they're not going to be the weak link of that team this year. So you have Jalen Smith and all those guys and then you have, of course, they're going to be invigorated by the fact that they have this new rookie, this vibrant rookie, Micah Parsons, this big-time playmaker. So, and then, of course, with the addition of Dan Quinn, who's going to put them in a position to succeed, going to let them play fast, and is, going to make the defense simple for them where they can just react and they can play fast and fly around the football. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what the Cowboys will bring this year. Of course, especially, again, since Dak Prescott is back in the fold and then offense, Zeke is in the best shape of his life. Let's see if Tyronn Lue can hold up. Tyronn Smith can hold up. I don't know why I want to keep calling him Tyronn Lue. You said that would be the smallest line in the NFL if Tyronn Lue was playing left tackle. But if Tyron Smith can hold up, Hall of Famer Tyron Smith, if he can hold up, he's been injured for the last few years with the back, but he's still a first ballot Hall of Famer, probably 30 years old, something like that. So we'll see what the Cowboys do, but of course they couldn't do anything against your Texans this weekend.
Yeah, across from the ball from the Texans. Early on, I mean, you could tell that they were battling. They went to Connor Rush early. I think they started out with Garrett Gilbert as the starting quarterback, and it was only after a couple series that they went to Rush. You could tell they like him and they want to see what he has. And then DiNucci, from last week to this week, I think he had a much better game. Seemed to have control of the offense, seemed to be able to find the open guy, go through his read progression.
He's one of those sneaky good players. Remember after this first game last year, I came on the show and said that?
Yeah, and he showed a little bit of flexibility and where he can release the football with his arm angle and stuff. And I thought he had.
He just seemed like a competitor type.
I thought when the Cowboys quarterbacks had time to throw the football, they did a good job of doing that. The only problem was, throughout that entire game, it was evident that the defensive line depth of the Houston Texans compared to the offensive line depth on the Dallas Cowboys, it wasn't as good, and or it was better than the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah,
their offensive line wasn't as good, and
I like
they
what
were
Lovie Smith has those guys doing.
Oh yeah, they were constantly getting after the quarterback. And whenever when you're hungry for success, when you're a Houston Texans fan and you hadn't seen a whole lot of good things over the past couple seasons, you're hungry to see stuff like that. 7 turnovers in 2 games. That's what that defense is talking about. That's what the fans of the Houston Texans are talking about. They want to see that kind of active
And how many was it last year? Like 2 the entire season?
I think they had 9 the whole season.
9 the whole season, and you have 7.
16 games. You have 7 and 2.
Well, that shows you, Eddie, right there. And now that's where I was going to go. I've been impressed with what I've seen from the Texans. And, of course, like I said, I want to hold out on the Cowboys, and other than just watching them stay healthy and see the flashes. Just check out their overall attitude. But and I hadn't been disappointed in them. It's just like, okay, wait and see. But with the Texans, I've been very, very impressed. I like what Coach David Culley is doing. I like the culture and the attitude that he's brought to this team. These guys, like I stated last week, these guys on the Texans right now, he's really making them play to their best. I mean, they're seeming like they really want to play for this guy, and I like the overall energy and the overall attitude that I'm seeing from the Texans right now.
Look, whenever you're going to convince a free agent, which the Texans signed a whole bunch of those during the offseason, more than any other team by a wide margin. Whenever you're convincing a free agent to come to the Houston Texans, you've got to tell them, or they already know, they're coming somewhere where this is an organization right now that other organizations and people who cover the league, they kind of look down upon. This is a place where you feel like careers may come to die. Players don't want to come and play here. But
almost like the Raiders used to be for a while.
What the Texans are trying to do is they're trying to bring guys who are tune out the noise guys who want to prove to the NFL, to their peers, other players, and the coaches that they've still got something left. They can still contribute to a winning football team, to a successful football team.
I like
not
Hargraves.
just not just a bottom of the barrel,
Bottom feeder.
bottom feeding team. Get us through this season while we figure out what we're going to do with our quarterback and draft the guy next year. Even though that may be the overall plan, I don't feel like that's what the message David Coley is delivering to these guys. I don't feel like that's the motivation this team is taking the field with. I feel like they're out there to prove that they're a whole lot better than people think they are. And with or without Deshaun Watson, they're going to show up on Sunday and they're going to give you a hell of a fight. And really, if that's what David Coley's instilling in these guys, then he's doing a damn good job so far.
I totally agree, man. I mean, he's definitely instilling some type of confidence in these guys and a belief that they can be good this season. And like you said, even without Deshaun Watson, because they see, even though they realize that Tyrod Taylor is not Deshaun Watson, they see the veteran leadership and the talent and the ability that he brings. And I think they all believe that they can win with Tyrod Taylor if that's going to be the case. Of course, in the real world, they would love to have Deshaun Watson on their team. I mean, I would think most of those guys would love to have Deshaun Watson as their quarterback because he gives them the best chance to win ball games. And I hadn't heard anyone say that they don't like Deshaun Watson. But that's just me speculating on that.
Yeah.
But I would like to think that they realize that Tyrod Taylor is a viable option at quarterback with his athleticism and the way he can distribute the football. And they're just invigorated right now with some good energy and some good vibes over there with the Texans, man. And
Definitely.
I've been impressed with David Culley and what he's been able to do over there. Of course, when you bring in a guy like Lovie Smith, a guy that's proven and true, a guy that's been there, and a guy that these guys, they know he brings instant credibility. So he's definitely a guy that you're going to listen to, when you're under his tutelage. So I think they're soaking everything in, and they're trying to learn as much as possible from some good coaching right now. And I think the message is getting across over there with the Texans, man. And I'm really curious to see, really anxious to see how they're going to look this upcoming season.
Yeah, I mean, you talk a lot about Tyrod Taylor and him being a viable quarterback, and I'm not so sure. Like, I don't know how much they're going to put on Tyrod. What it's looking like to me is they're going to be a team that's going to run the football a whole lot. And they brought in a couple hungry guys to do it. They bring in Philip Lindsay. They bring in Mark Ingram. And these are two guys that we've seen in the past work really good when they have that secondary Robin, to go with their Batman, whoever it may be. When it was Philip Lindsay, it was Melvin Gordon that he was with. And whenever it was, Mark Ingram, he had the likes of J.K. Dobbins, Gus Edwards, a multitude of backs over there. The full load, if it were put on these guys, may be a little bit too much. But if it's half a load or a third of the load, and you've got David Johnson,
and you can keep them all
Mark
fresh.
Ingram, and Philip Lindsay, and then you've got a guy in Tyrod Taylor who's not going to turn over the football, and a defense that is going to take the football away. Now you can talk about being a pesky team that can win 8-9 games and try to fight for one of them wild card spots. I know we're making a lot out of two preseason games.
No, but I want to segue from their possibilities to we're going to talk about Jacksonville next. But go ahead.
Whenever you're seeing a team turn over the football, and whenever turnovers, they make or break teams in the NFL.
Right.
That can make an average offense look elite. When your starting field position is closer to the 40 than the 25.
Absolutely.
It makes a huge difference analytically over the course of a season.
Absolutely.
Whenever you can force turnovers like that. And then you look at the defense as a whole. Lovie Smith, you can tell he's simplified things. He's putting athletic guys in positions where if they just stay at home or do what they need to do, be in the right spot, they may be able to get just a fingertip on the ball or a paw on the ball. But that's okay because there's another guy doing his job right behind him in Alani Johnson or Justin Reed. And I got a feeling that this looks like one of those defenses that are going to create a lot of tip passes in the middle, and those guys on the back end, Lonnie Johnson, Justin Reed,
can
the
be
likes of those guys. There's going to be some fluttering footballs flying into their hands because of how this defense is built.
Right.
It's built to get in a certain area, use your length and speed to make a play on the football, and even if you don't catch it, get that sucker up in the air. And also, I'm seeing a lot of Texans. That's right. I'm seeing a lot of Texans doing that peanut punch that Charles Tillman made famous back when he was playing for Lovie Smith in Chicago.
Yes, he did.
I'm seeing multiple
That's
players
great coaching
do that
right there.
whenever they're pursuing the football and trying to make a tackle on an offensive player. That's going to cause some turnovers as well. If they can be good at making the tackle while also doing that, then this defense could be a lot better, and this team could be a lot better than people were expecting.
Hey man, I think Justin Reed can be an All-Pro back there, free safety. Again, I like what you said about Lovie Smith, about one of those, him teaching that, to get the ball out, to dislodge the football. And you know what? That's the thing, man. As a defense coordinator, I mean, of course you want guys who fly around, play fast, of course know your assignment, do your assignment. If you do your assignment to the best of your ability, I mean, it will make everything better for everybody. But play fast, fly to the football, and try to get the football. I don't think most defenses, of course you want to be fundamentally sound to where you make the tackle, but that's the main thing if I was a defense coordinator that I would preach. Get the damn ball. Get the football. Go after that football, but of course you want to secure the tackle. So in practice, I will work on that more than anything is like, how do we get the football back? Dislodge the football. Go after the ball and swarm to the football. Everybody congregate to the ball. I mean, I would not blow the whistle until all 11 are over there around the football every day in practice, every play, just to get that instilled in their mind that we're flying after the football and they're all going to be around the football. Play fast, play fast. But I like what I'm seeing from the Texans, Eddie. I mean, I really do. I'm not just saying that. Yeah. I mean, trust me, I would. I keep it real about mine, well, I bash the tech, but I got to give credit where credit is due. Until otherwise.
We got to hope that they get the quarterback situation figured out, whether it's with Deshaun Watson or whether it's getting him moved. They have to make sure that they don't end up going through what the Texans went through from, I'd say, 2008, 9, all the way up until 2013. Or 2014, whenever Deshaun Watson, or 2015 it was, I believe, when he gets drafted, where you just don't really have a guy that you feel confident in and that you could call a franchise quarterback, and you could build the best team you want around them. I mean, I think about that 2011 Houston Texans, J.J. Watt's rookie year. You could build everything around him. And, yeah, they had Matt Schaub, and maybe he might have been good enough to get them to the Super Bowl. They did get to the brink of it, or the brink of the AFC Championship with a fifth-round rookie.
Right.
However, I still don't feel like there was a whole lot of people outside of that locker room that really felt like Matt Schaub was capable of leading them to a Super Bowl. Those are words you will never hear spoken about Deshaun Watson. And I just don't want to go through another long period of time where we build a team that's good enough to keep the coach and keep the GM and keep everybody in office and getting paychecks and keep us taking our asses out there every Sunday, but not good enough to get over the hump because you don't have the right guy at the quarterback position. So we can say all this good stuff we want about the Texans, and we can laud them all they want, give them all the pats on the backs and all the attaboys. If they don't figure out the quarterback position or they don't fix it with Deshaun Watson, there's still going to be a lot of headache and heartache ahead for the Houston Texans.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, now, don't get me wrong. I say I like what I've seen thus far in preseason.
Right.
So, but I'm not calling the Texans juggernauts by no means just yet. I would have to see it during the regular season, see the first 4 or 5 games, see how they look. Of course, in my opinion, like I said, if they had Deshaun Watson, that bolsters their chances of being an even better team because of the exploits of Deshaun Watson.
But, it's clear, Greg, that when you bring in Lovie Smith, the defense immediately appears to be better.
Right.
And a lot of the pieces are still the same. Yes, they made some moves. They brought in Desmond King, who's a guy who looks like he's going to play a lot of cornerback, and he's going to be a guy that can make some exciting things happen in the return game. He's already busted a couple of them loose for 20-plus yard returns. So I really like what I'm seeing out of that guy. And then they bring in James Campen to coach the offensive line, and immediately you can tell that these guys were better than they've played over the past few years, especially when you talk about young guys like Titus Howard, Max Sharping, and even, a guy like Justin Britt, another one of them hungry veterans coming in on a prove-it deal that's looking to show that they've still got something left to give.
Hey, man. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing what the Texans do, especially amid the Deshaun Watson controversy and the fact that I want to see David Culley succeed. I'm glad he got his opportunity, and I want to see the brother make the best of it. I honestly do. And even though I'm a Cowboys fan, I'm in Houston. I from what I've seen of David Culley, and seems like a very nice guy, and, I mean, I just love his plight. I love his plight, And I like the fact that he's gotten his chance, and I want to see him succeed again. You know, the same way with the coach with the Rockets. You know, so we shall see what the Texans do. And, of course, at their running back position, like you said, they have a trio of guys that can keep you off balance. You know what I mean? And they can bring it. Ingram can still bring it. David Johnson, you know, can be a nice running back. And, I mean, of course, he looks the part more than anything. But if you, like you said, if you put him with a couple of other guys and where he doesn't have to be the carry 15, 20 times a game, and you get him in certain packages where you may dump the ball to him on the screenplay or something like that and let him do his thing. But you have three guys now that can go to work in Ingram, Johnson, and your boy
Philip Lindsay.
And
they also added Rex Burkhead to the group as well. And no, they probably won't be able to keep all those guys, but who knows?
That's a nice pickup.
They might keep them. They might be able to keep them all. And we've seen before what Rex has been able to do in some meaningful games whenever he's wearing that navy blue Patriot uniform up in Foxborough. You know, the guy, yeah, he's a gamer.
We'll talk about Foxborough in a minute, too.
He's certainly capable of filling a third down role and a necessary need on any team when you talk about depth at the running back position. Now, a guy I want to talk about a little bit, I know you've liked what you've seen from him so far, Zach Wilson. This guy looks the part, man.
Hey, man, he does.
And
he really does.
From the way the ball comes out of his hand to just
Justin should have been the second pick.
How he moves in the pocket, he doesn't. You can tell he's not a big
guy.
You
just stole my thunder right there, man.
But man, those throws are coming off. They're on time. He looks comfortable. I mean, this could be.
He reminds me of Brett Favre.
I mean,
early on, just the way.
Yeah, those are high comparisons, but I mean, he looks like he's going to come in and play really, really well, and that offense is a good fit for him. And we've talked about that type of offense and how it does sort of take some of the pressure off the quarterback, and it makes some of those reads to make over the middle of the field a lot easier. And he's doing a damn good job of making those reads and then putting the ball on the money.
On the money. You know what, Eddie? I was saying the same thing when I watched him this past weekend. I said, man, dude, I mean, like I said, I love this highlight reel. And I want, you know, and the fact when he went second, even though I say Justin Fields should have been the second pick in the draft, but, you know, if this guy keeps looking like he did this past weekend, I mean, it's going to be almost like a Patrick Mahomes scenario, bro. I mean, that's how this guy looks. I mean, just his composure, just his whole demeanor, the way he plays with that bravado, you know, with that confidence. And, again, he kind of reminds me of Brett Favre, just kind of seems like he may have like a gunslinger mentality. You know, he seems like he's one of those guys that's going to have a gunslinger mentality, but his accuracy, I mean, that seems like it may be better than Brett Favre's, even though Brett, come on now, we're talking about a Hall of Famer, what, 4-time MVP, whatever he was. But, of course, we know Brett can throw it to the other team. But that's what being a gunslinger is, and he seems like he trusts his arm. He feels he can make any throw from any platform, and he makes it look so pretty, man. I mean, the guy is fun to watch. He is must-see television, and I'm definitely looking forward. I mean, if he can be successful in New York and bring the Jets back to prominence, I mean, the world is his.
I mean, and a lot of it's going to have to do with that coaching staff too, because I feel like they knew when they targeted this guy that he was going to be a perfect fit for what they wanted to do, and that they were going to transition this offense instead of being one of them heavy bulldozing type of running games, a power running game, into an offense that's more built for the zone scheme, stretch defenses out, open up the middle of the field, and then have an accurate quarterback who can find those holes and then put the ball on the money. And that's exactly what Zach Wilson has done so far in the preseason. They've been able to keep him relatively clean.
You got Mekhi Becton.
I don't see him
probably
making
the best tackle in the game.
Oh, yeah, Mekhi Becton.
Just in his second year.
I don't see him making those.
It's a nice tackle to have on your team.
You know, panic type of plays that you see rookies make. Now, like we mentioned multiple times, he's not facing live bullets. But there's been multiple times where I've seen guys play well in the preseason. Yeah, I always go back to Russell Wilson. When you saw him get on the field in the preseason, even though it was the preseason, you kind of knew, man, Matt Flynn's days are numbered.
Yeah.
They're going to be really short
Russell
in Seattle because
you know
this guy is the future. And when you see Zach Wilson out there, you see the same exact thing, a guy that can just play and knows what he's doing. He's got instincts, and you can just see a player when they're playing with instincts, it's different than whenever they're out there trying to think and process everything, you know, step by step by step. This guy's
Yes.
instinctive, and it's clear
He is
that
instinctive.
he's going to be the guy
confident
that they
in his
drafted him to
ability.
be. I will just see if the guy stays healthy. But so far, so good. And Corey Davis is loving it too, because I know he was drafted
It's resurrected his
near
career.
the top of the draft, and he had some lofty expectations in Tennessee, fell short. Let's see if New York can be the place where those some of those dreams he had, or some of those what's the word I'm looking for?
Lofty goals.
Yeah, you call them goals, or just what you anticipated him to be. You know, some of those can finally come to fruition.
Hey, well, you know what? He definitely has the right guy at the helm.
Some of those expectations. I don't know why I'm drawing a blank over here.
No, I got you. No, man. Shoot, we just kicking it. But, I mean, the thing about it is, Zach Wilson, I agree. Zach Wilson, I was very, very, very impressed. And he hasn't gone against live bullets. But, again, his composure, his instincts, and his confidence in the fact that he can make every throw off of every platform. I mean, and the fact, I made the point last week about why are they not questioning whether or not he should start. But then again, I did my research, and Zach Wilson, of course, he's going to start anyway, too, no matter what. But Zach Wilson, the two guys that's behind him on the depth chart coming into camp, they hadn't even played an NFL game yet. So, I mean, it's just inevitable, especially when you trade away Sam Darnold to Carolina and you draft him number 2. So, pretty much that was probably never going to be a discussion if he was going to be the guy now. But he's definitely looking like he's definitely a guy I want to watch play. If the Jets are coming on TV, I want to watch Zach Wilson play. I mean,
and it's
just
important to know
fun
that it looks like the coaches know what they're doing with him. You know, so many times we'll see these guys will get their hands on these prospects. You know, I think about Jeff Fisher and Vince Young. Have no clue what to do with the guy.
Don't get me started on that, man.
No clue how to use
God.
the guy. Clearly, that's not going on here. But yeah, definitely
try to use him like he was in Madison.
Definitely one of the teams that I'm excited seeing for the upcoming NFL season.
There it is. And staying on rookie quarterbacks for a second, Trevor Lawrence, and of course we talked about the Texans and what they would do this upcoming season, their prospects and how good they're looking in camp as far as their energy level and things of that sort, and the way they're just invested right now and looking like they're having some fun. Of course, Jacksonville last night, Eddie, love Urban Meyer, but it may be a long season for Jacksonville. And I know I'm on record before the season started saying that I think Jacksonville is going to be a lot better more sooner than later, and it still may be. Maybe after these couple of games, Urban, who's still learning on the fly, but maybe he'll go in and maybe he will instill some stuff in them. But from what I've seen from the offense, now granted, they're without 3 offensive linemen last night. So Trevor Lawrence, Trevor's going to start week 1. Trevor's going to start week 1. I know we can hear all this Gardner Minshew talk, and, of course, the linemen. But they had 3 linemen out last night, and I'd be surprised if Trevor Lawrence does not start week 1. But that offense looks putrid. And, of course, you don't have Travis Etienne right now, but they look so vanilla, so generic. And, of course, Urban Meyer is trying to mesh his style with Bevel. But, I mean, is Bevel the guy? We shall see. But 5 yard in, 5 yard out. I mean, it just looks so amateur, the scheme up to this point. Now, of course, they're playing without DJ Chark. He's the guy that can take the top off of a defense, a former first-round pick. That's going to give Trevor Lawrence something to work with. And, of course, they're going to lean heavily on the run game. It took a hit with Travis Etienne. Now he's out for the entire season. Mm-hmm. And even, Eddie, in the preseason, before I get your take, even in the preseason, the first couple of games, as far as the scheme is concerned, before Travis Etienne got hurt, I was wondering, I'm like, I don't even think they're using him right. And, of course, during camp, they had him at wide receiver for a second, and then everyone started asking, was he going to play wide receiver? And he's like, no, we're just going to work him right here so he can be a dual threat or whatever. But I didn't even see them even use him like that as a dual threat, even try to get the ball to him in that fashion. It's almost like they were solely going to let everybody know that, okay, he's going to play running back, instead of really opening up the offense and working on some things. But I don't know about Bevel, man. Of course, Trevor Lawrence got killed last night, and, of course, you're playing against the Saints. Now, I'm still a proponent. I'm still very much a proponent of playing these quarterbacks more sooner than later. Of course, Andy Dalton has been named the starter in Chicago. That'll probably last until probably after the Rams and Aaron Donald have about 4 sacks. But, of course, but we'll talk about that in a second. But Trevor Lawrence with 3 linemen out last night, and how generic that offensive scheme looks. Now, of course, I like the fact that they're utilizing him as a drop back quarterback and they're not using him as this dual threat where he's going to be on design runs. But that doesn't mean that you can't roll him out the pocket from time to time or get him out the pocket and still let him use his athleticism. Now, of course, you don't want the design runs like he did at Clemson where he was just on a bootleg and he was just trying to run over everybody and he ended up blowing out a left shoulder. So I think they have to get more creative on offense, more innovative, and they're definitely going to have to lean on the run game. But what I'll say this Trevor Lawrence, and this is why I say play. Now, of course, you don't want him to get hurt and all this and that, but hey, I mean, play ball. You better coach him up or something, and we'll see. But the thing about it, the first couple of series, he has to get used to the speed. He has to get after the first few series, he did some things. The speed of the game got to him. They hit him, and he was indecisive on some plays and was kind of slow to react. Then by that third series, he knew where the defense was going to be coming from. He knew what to expect on third down, and he did some things different moving forward based on that experience earlier in the game. And then when you're playing against a fast defense like the Saints are going to be bringing it. But Jacksonville has their work cut out for them, and they just look like a team I hope Urban gets them to where they're very respectable this year and even better. But I didn't like the demeanor that I saw from Urban. Usually he's a guy that's kind of rah-rah confidence. Of course, this is the NFL. It's different from college. He's definitely not used to losing. But I thought way too often last night when I looked at Urban, he was shaking his head, he was doing this, and I was saying to myself, Urban has to inspire these guys. That's his calling card. That's his MO. This is only the second preseason game. I mean, he can't expect to come in and do things like he did at Ohio State and Florida. He's going to have to take some lumps. They're going to have to take some lumps as a team. They're going to have to learn. So he's going to have to stay invested, which I'm sure he will. I'm not teaching Urban Meyer anything he doesn't know. But I just didn't like the shaking the head and things like that. I thought he would probably be more in those guys' faces like, let's go. And I think he will moving forward.
It's a learning process for Herb as he
it is. Like I said,
that deficiencies at this level are a whole lot harder to mask, than they are, and let's say at the collegiate level, and then also finding and being able to take advantage of other teams' deficiencies are places where they're not as strong at. They're a lot smaller. Those areas are a lot smaller. They're a lot smaller targets. They're harder to hit. And so he's struggling adjusting to that.
Everything is moving that much faster.
Because you give him Trevor Lawrence at Ohio State, and he's going to bring you a couple of titles.
Absolutely.
But it's going to take a whole lot more than
and he has to realize that.
T. Lawrence to get it done.
Absolutely. And of course, they kind of bolster that offensive line, but they're going to have to get some weapons. And they're going to do that over the years to come. But I'm all about, just like you put Elway in there, just like you put Manning in there. Now, they didn't have great first years as far as team success-wise. And Aikman, and, of course, they were 1-15. But what I think it does, if they're going to grow, if your team is going to grow together, you let him play ball. That's your franchise quarterback. You drafted him number 1 overall, and you design some stuff to try to keep him upright more times than not, but lean on the run game, of course. But you have to get them to gel together as a team. They have to get used to his cadence. He have to get used to what to do in certain situations on the fly, on the field. And I think you can start, I paid attention last night, and you can see that by the third or fourth series, he was able to grasp some things just from actually being on the field and going through it in live action.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of people that have different theories about that.
He got
and a lot of teams.
He took a good shot, too.
He took a couple of good shots.
And,
right.
You hate to see that, but you see him dust himself off, get back up. You can tell he's got the wherewithal to play the position, but I know Herb had to be cringing over there watching him take those hits, and then you get the news about Etienne today and the Liz Frank injury, and we know how tricky those can be. You can't take any chances with that. He's going to miss the remainder of his rookie season before it even gets started. That's a tough blow, but
that really is. That's a home run hitter right there that you desperately need.
He is, but you know what? If you're the Jaguars,
run game and passing game,
you got a guy in James Robinson who finished. I think he was a top 10 running back last year, and James Robinson certainly it's better than serviceable. I don't feel like you're going to miss too much of a beat. I know that there were high hopes for Etienne, but Robinson
As a backup to Robinson.
may have been
As a
the
backup.
more been the more polished back. And then you also have a very good journeyman right behind him in Carlos Hyde,
Right.
who we've seen up close and
From
personal
Ohio
here in
State.
Houston,
Tough
Ohio
player.
State, and San Francisco. A player that's extended his NFL career beyond where we thought it was going to be by just putting his nose to the grindstone, getting in the gym, working hard, and now he's been a legitimate number 1 or number 2 running back for a couple of squads the past 2 years, the Seahawks last year and the Texans before that.
Well, one thing about Carlos Hyde, and Urban knows this, Carlos Hyde is going to give you that toughness. If you want to lean on the run game, there's a guy that's going to hold on to the football more times than not, and he's going to churn out those yards for you and really give you that toughness in the run game. And then, like I said, like we were saying, if you had a guy like Etienne to come take the top off of a defense on a swing route or something like that, or just a screen pass and take it to the house. But Carlos Hyde is definitely going to churn out yardage for you and be very tough in the run game. He's going to keep the chains moving, most of the time. He's not really a home run threat to take it the distance, but he's going to work for his yardage, and he's pretty much always leaning forward. So, but I'm really looking forward to seeing what Jacksonville does. I mean, hey, you may see a drastic turn from last night to next week. I mean, Urban is going to coach those guys up. I mean, but I just think it's going to take some time for them to get the necessary talent in there and to really the overall talent. They have some pieces right now. That's why I said I thought they would be better more sooner than later, but they're going to have to solidify some things on the offensive line and get that scheme more intact and more creative, and so we'll see.
You're going to get a first-hand look at them because they play the Houston Texans to open up the season, and I do not doubt that Urban Meyer is going to have more than a few tricks up his sleeve. Why not pull them all out on the first game of the season and have people wondering for the rest of the year if he's going to do some crazy stuff, like maybe go for a couple of onside kicks or some fake punts or some double pass or whatever it is that he's got up his sleeve.
Plays tough and fast.
I guarantee you that he's going to have something. There's going to be something that Herb pulls out of the hat one way or another. It's in my gut. I got a feeling. So we'll get a look at that
because he's a brilliant coach. Because he's a brilliant coach, and no matter what level it's on, Urban Meyer is going to succeed. He's going to succeed if you just give him the necessary time to build that culture, build that team, and you have a Hall of Fame bound quarterback if he stays healthy. Yeah, I'm saying it right now before he even plays his first NFL game. That's how I feel about Trevor Lawrence, huh?
They better get started building that bus already.
Right. But I just think Urban is going to be successful, but he has to get some players in there. The defense, I like the way they kind of fly around. And of course, the defensive backs got beat a few times last night, but that was just great catches on a couple of them. Actually, they were actually in position a couple of times, but great catches by Marquez Callaway from the Saints. I mean, that's a guy that I've been very, very impressed with. And so, speaking of the Saints real quick, while we're there, and Jameis Winston, obviously, he looked very good last night, Eddie. So that quarterback competition seems to be Jameis Winston is going to get to start week 1.
And this debate drives people nuts, because to some people it's so obvious that Jameis Winston should be the starter, and there's no debate about it. Taysom Hill isn't even on the same level as him as a quarterback. Now, Taysom does give you some other attributes that maybe Jameis doesn't possess, and maybe he's a little bit tougher physically. But to me, that's not what makes your starting NFL quarterback. And to me, I don't even think Hill's in the same boat as Winston. But here's what Winston has done over his career is he's made coaches completely paranoid. Because typically you talk about guys that like him that come in as the number 1 overall pick or a really high draft pick, and you see them not have success early on, and you think, well, it's got to be the coaching. It's got to be Dirk Cutter. Something's got to be wrong. It's not him. He's got the talent. He has the tools. Well, then what happened whenever they had Bruce Arians in there? Right. Bruce Arians was able to get the best out of the kid.
He threw for over 5,000 yards, I think.
But also got the worst, and clearly, he hindered what was a Super Bowl caliber team, from even making the playoffs.
Right.
And, but you look at the Saints and you think, well, how are they going to make this guy? How are they going to make this guy work? Well, I think they're going to use Taysom Hill And if the head coach believes in Taysom Hill and Winston buys that the head coach believes in him, then he knows that at any given time, if he goes back to that old bull jive, throwing the ball up in double coverage and taking chances that his arm, writing checks that his arm can't cash.
Well, Sean Payton already said he's not going to let that. He's going to make sure that doesn't
Right.
happen.
So if they're letting him know that, hey, there's always going to be this guy.
Get out.
There's always going to be this guy waiting in the wings, waiting to take your job. If you go out there and you revert back to the old James, or
borrow,
you don't
invest,
stay within the
and earn
confines
cashback
of this
rewards
offense, and
all
you go
in
out
one
there and
app.
go all
That's
willy-nilly.
how you get your money right with
known
SoFi.
to do. You go out there and do that, your job will be rescinded from you and will be given to Taysom Hill. Whether the football minds around the world agree with it or not, they've got to keep somebody nipping at his heels to make sure that he stays focused and runs that offense the way it's designed to run. Because if he does, and they are able to hold on to the football, watch this become a Saints team that maybe can do a few more things than what they could do when they had Drew Brees under center. I know that sounds crazy, but you've got a much younger live arm in there that's going to open up some areas of the field. And let's face it, Drew wasn't capable of reaching last year.
Right.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And you did see that his ability to drop the deep ball, throw the deep ball the way he does, it's going to stretch defenses a lot more than they were stretched last year.
Again, when you talk about a new governance structure, the 21st model of the NCAA, Alston, we're all dealing with that. So we're better together than we are separate.
For the foreseeable future.
But I think you have to have a group
again, this guy Marquez
that
Callaway
really understands
and so
that
you have Taysom Hill.
Expansion
I mean, I like
mean
these quarterback competitions because it
you
keeps these
end up
guys on their
changing
toes.
membership
Like even Gardner
across
Minshew,
multiple
as good as he is as a backup quarterback and probably a starting
shortened period
quarterback,
of time.
I think in Jacksonville, Urban is kind of make sure. I think he's trying to make sure that he keeps that open in the sense that Trevor doesn't get too comfortable and he has somebody competing with him. And Trevor's the type of guy. He's very mature beyond his years. But Jameis Winston.
Truthfully, it's frustrating to see how fast dust reappears.
But dusting with a cloth is a pain.
And dealing with a bulky vacuum is such a hassle. Ugh. So now, we use our Swiffer Sweeper
And dusters. The fluffy fibers, they pick up dust easily, grabbing it in all those hard-to-reach places. Gotcha.
And for our floors, Sweeper's textured cloths log all kinds of dirt, dust, and pet hair. Unlike my vacuum, it sneaks under and around places. Look at that.
Dust-free and hassle-free.
Stop cleaning, start Swiffering.
But Jameis,
in the past, I'll just point you to last summer.
Throw that football down the
for
field,
a point of reference in alliances.
Open things
usually,
up for the run game.
in years past, the SEC's closest friend among conferences has been the ACC.
And it's not surprising to me.
I
when
think in
first
2008, the ACC and the SEC tried to get the +1 enacted. It didn't work. As far as alliances, the SEC and the Big 12 have been close over the years. The Sugar Bowl tie-in between the Big 12 and the SEC, the Big 12 SEC basketball
so
alliance.
He's been in practice.
That's all over now. And what all these other leagues are saying is the SEC has left us behind. To me, it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing for proud conferences like the Pac-12.
Now you have to see the game from a different perspective.
Like the Big Ten and the ACC to join with the Pac-12 and pretty well admit that we're having to combine forces to compete with the SEC. And I cannot wait for the explanation next week when these commissioners get together about why they left out the Big 12. That's where all this began.
Not saying that Jameis Winston
the SEC allegedly raided the Big 12,
as far as making big plays
but these guys are not backing them up either.
You know he's going to challenge downfield. You know he's going to do that. But what I think Sean Payton is going to do, he's going to have so much of a scheme, like we just talked about, so much of a scheme and so much of a route tree and a different route tree with these receivers, there's always going to be an outlet for Jameis Winston to where he doesn't have to.
Texaco with Tech Rounds gives you unbeatable mileage for whatever fills your tank.
Over the last couple of years, hopefully he's learned that in terms of the offense, which has been taught to him, and everything is now just second nature to him. And so, and also, again, just being conscious of the fact that he cannot commit a turnover right here.
And
So,
full tanks
of course,
go further.
the Saints are already, Eddie. They're already, if Jameis could live up to his end of the bargain and be like a number one pick, a guy that throws for all these yards and protects the football,
the college football playoff, which it now appears certain they're going to do.
The Saints can be a Super Bowl contender, of course, again, with that defense.
The fact that I could have
told you
who those 5 teams that are ranked in the top 5 yesterday were going to be,
Jameis
3 years
Winston,
ago, I could have told you 3 years ago who they were going to be. That is actually the best argument for expanding the playoff. It will, in the long run, give more teams a fighting chance. What do you think?
We haven't really seen Jameis perform well.
Greeny, only because I've gone through withdrawal.
The few that he has
Greeny,
had,
you are an
we know
idiot.
that they're not
For this reason.
Somebody said that they're surprised that he had such a
you
good
know
game
what I'm about to say. I agree with you in principle. We could none of this is
for him to do that, maybe he's turned the corner in every regard.
The answer to this because it's so simple. But
somebody was joking how the fact that last night's game was such an important game, it's surprising that Jameis came out and he didn't throw to the other team at least a couple of times. But hopefully Jameis has turned the corner, man. I like Jameis Winston. The talent is there. I like his leadership ability. You know, when he's not stealing crab legs. That's why you call him crab legs.
Old crab legs, man.
But that was in college, I think. A little mishap. But so we'll see, man. Taysom Hill is definitely going to give you that change of pace. And he can come in and be that Swiss knife that can do some different things and can really.
Yeah, I'm sure they're still going to use him in the same way they used him last year.
Absolutely.
And then you've seen the plays that he can make playing tight end / wide receiver, and you got to really.
And it gives the opponent two styles to prepare for as well.
And maybe two guys who could throw the ball on the field at the same time. Oh, here we go. Now we're talking about backyard type plays. You get Taysom Hill out there with the double pass.
Yeah.
You know, and
something you draw up in the dirt.
I heard you mention a guy's name earlier. We were talking about before the show players who maybe people may not know or players that have stood out in the preseason, back into the roster guys or third string type guys. You know, you mentioned his name earlier, Callaway. I know that's a guy you are impressed by.
Rocking at number one.
And
I'm impressed just for
coming at the right time whenever, you know, all the turmoil and issues surrounding Michael Thomas, him not being healthy, and then on top of that, you know, wanting out of New Orleans. Is this Callaway kid, could this be the guy that eases the pain that may come with the Michael Thomas exit or a Michael Thomas trade?
Or Michael Thomas not being there for the first 3 or 4 games or whatever he's expected to miss. Absolutely. I mean, he's a guy that definitely seemed like, again, like we always say, Eddie, me and you, it's preseason, of course, but this guy looks the part. And so we shall see. I mean, he definitely seems like a guy who has good track. I mean, he doesn't seem like a home run hitter in the sense that he's just going to outrun everybody, but he seems very clever. He can get downfield. He looks like a tall guy, 6'4", I think it is, 6'3", 6'4", but he's a guy with some long legs, some long strides. You can throw the ball up, and he can run a deep route, a 9 route, and go get it. But he already seems like he has the Michael Irvin school of thought down. He seems like he knows how to cleverly use his hands to gain an advantage while the ball is in the air. And that's a nice skill to have if you can get away with it and you're not getting caught, you know, by the referee a lot of times. But I noticed that last night. He can cleverly, you know, use a way to create separation. But the ball skills are there. Made some great catches last night. Obviously, the concentration was there. And so I want to see more of him and see how he does in the regular season. But again, the guy's out there wearing number 1, like he know he belongs and he believes in his talent. So
every time I think about a preseason wide receiver that just burst onto the scene out of nowhere and then was able to make a career out of it, I always go and think back to Victor Cruz. You remember Victor Cruz when he first he made a name for himself in the preseason, scoring touchdowns and making plays in the preseason. Nobody knew who the hell Victor Cruz was, or you know, the salsa dance. It wasn't his trademark yet. You know, nobody knew about the guy, but he showed up in the preseason. He flashed in front of those coaches. He made the roster, and then he ended up making a pretty damn good NFL career out of that. And when I look at a guy like Callaway, you see them doing that in the preseason. You think, hey, man, here's another guy like that, a guy that is one of them diamond in the rough type of finds, you know, that a team like the Saints, where you feel like, yeah, even though things aren't great with Michael Thomas right now, you still look at Traquan Smith, Thomas, Alvin Kamara, and you think about all the athleticism they have and all the speed, and then you see them add a guy like Callaway, and it's like the rich get richer.
I know.
We go through this with the Chiefs all the time when they get Hardman, and who's the other guy they got over there? I'm drawing a blank on his name. Back into the roster for the Chiefs.
For the Chiefs,
his last name starts with a P. You got Hardman, and then they got another guy. Well, I know Hill, but he's Pringle, Byron Pringle.
Byron Pringle.
And this is a guy
he's good too. He's good.
Like, okay, he's a fifth or sixth receiver, but he'll pop a 105-yard return, you
yeah.
know, or he'll burn everybody on the
yeah.
field.
Yeah.
You're like, who the hell is this guy? No, he's not going to line up at X, you know, or Z for you the entire game. But you get the ball in his hands, he can make stuff happen. Callaway is a guy, I think, even a step above him. But he's one of those guys that, you know, who the heck is this guy? Well, you better remember that Marquez Callaway is here because he may be here to stay.
Hey, you're right. And the thing about that, Eddie, is if you think about teams like Kansas City, like you were speaking of, and of course you have Andy Reid and his great offensive mind. So you know he's going to, even if you're a guy that's not really good on another team, you go to a scheme like that and an offensive mind like Kansas City. I mean, of course, you're playing in the NFL, so there's some talent there. And, of course, if you can evaluate talent and you know what fits best with your scheme, I mean, guys like just thrive in situations like that. And then you have the best quarterback in the NFL in Pat Mahomes throwing you the football. So all you have to do is pretty much get open, use that God-given talent. But the scheme is going to be right for you, and the ball is going to be there. And as far as, and that's the same thing with the Saints. And Callaway, I mean, not only is he a talent like that, but, of course, you're pairing him with a great offensive mind and Sean Payton. So you know Sean Payton is going to create some matchups and some mismatches and create some play designs where he's going to be able to utilize that talent of Callaway. And, hey, again, if Jameis can cut back on the turnovers, because you know the defense is going to fly around. The defense is going to fly around. Malcolm Jenkins is still flying around at his advanced age in the secondary. But, of course, you know that defensive line is going to fly around. So the defense, you know how you used to think of the Saints as not a good defensive team? Now, I mean, the Saints bring it. The Saints bring it. So that was a good learning experience for Jacksonville last night. But because the Saints are a juggernaut. And you know, Eddie, too, okay, let me ask you this. I mean, is there anything you want to add on that?
No, go ahead.
Okay. What about Drew Lock and Bridgewater? Of course, Bridgewater looking pretty good.
Bridgewater, to me, looks like the better quarterback, hands down. The Drew Lock experiment is probably being close to being over. I mean, they're going to keep the guy, obviously.
Yeah.
But I don't think he's the guy. And I don't think there's any way he beats out Bridgewater. When I watch Bridgewater, I watch a quarterback, or I see a quarterback who, year after year, he's found a way to improve on something that he wasn't very good at the year before. His pocket presence this year so far in the preseason, it looks more second nature. It looks more natural. It's not so herky-jerky.
And he's another year
he's very deliberate, and when he steps up in the pocket, he knows how far he needs to go, and then he's making accurate throws. And it just looks clean. It looks crisp. Right. And this is something that you didn't always see with Teddy Bridgewater, but you've heard all the stories and you've seen the reports about the way the guy prepares, the way he, coaches himself up. Even takes it as far as he talks about playing Madden and calling them virtual reps. He'll practice reading defenses.
That's smart.
And even though it's a video game, when you're watching the safety separate so you know it's cover two,
right?
Whether it's a video game or you're doing it in real life, you're still watching that happen, watching it take place, and learning how to react to it. And Teddy Bridgewater, I've been impressed with him every step of the way, from where he was at in Minnesota to the injury, recovering from that, the Saints, and then Carolina, and now in Denver, where you thought, they brought him in to sort of maybe light a fire under the tail of Drew Lock, but all Teddy has done is come in and shown them that, hey, I'm a starting quarterback in the NFL, and he's going to win the job.
Yeah, I mean, you know what? I think he's going to win the job as well, and I think Drew Lock has some talent, but in that particular situation, I think Teddy Bridgewater is the right guy for the job. I mean, you think about Teddy Bridgewater, here's a guy, he's very intelligent, very smart. So he's a thinking type quarterback. And he's not going to wow you with big long bomb touchdown passes. I mean, he's going to pretty much be underneath a controlled type of passing game. But he's going to study the game. He's not going to be a guy that's very, very turnover prone. So he's going to protect the football. So that's a guy that you can trust behind center. And he's a great leader. And the fact that he's another year removed from that knee injury, if you notice now, he's not wearing a sleeve or anything on that knee now. So now he's another year removed from that knee injury, so he can really drop back as a quarterback, as a passer, and really concentrate and survey the field and figure out what he needs to do. And he's not thinking about that knee. Even if he has to take off and run, he feels confident that he can do that now. And he's not wearing that bulky brace and not thinking, well, if I take off and run and get out of the pocket, is my knee going to hold up or is somebody going to hit me on my knee? I think now he's just back to playing old-fashioned quarterback, and you see the real Teddy Bridgewater right now because he's healthy. He's healthy physically and mentally. So I'm looking forward to seeing him as a starting quarterback in Denver.
That's where it's going. I mean, unless they get in on some Deshaun Watson talk,
right?
That he's going to be the guy.
Now, you said that Andy Dalton, moving over to the Bears real quick. You said that Andy Dalton, you said that he should be the starter opening up the season. Mm-hmm. I said that Justin Fields should be the starter opening up the season. Now, of course, last game, and I still think Justin Fields is going to be the starter more sooner than later. But of course, classic posturing, in my opinion, partly. Of course, Nagy has to fulfill his promise to Andy Dalton, and he probably feels Andy Dalton deserves that. He made him that promise before they even drafted Justin Fields, and I think some of that too. I think it's partly that they feel they can probably get away with a win or two with Andy Dalton. They're thinking about the old Andy Dalton, and I don't know how that's possible against the Rams, but we shall see. But they think he's a good enough quarterback to get the job done in the short term. They think he can get away with it without putting his job in jeopardy. So he's going to give it a try, like he said. He's going to give it a try and see what happens. For one, he promised Andy Dalton a job. And I think also, too, that's a part of him posturing in a slight sense, to show everyone that he's not going to bend, and he's a guy that beats to his own drum. He's the head coach. He's going to make the decisions, and he's not going to succumb to the media pressure. And whether it's from Chicago or anywhere else, he's not going to succumb to the pressure. And so he's going to take his chances. He's going to get that established, and he's also feeling that maybe I can get by for a game or two, and he's betting on himself in that regard. Now, Justin Fields, now you're going to play him with the first team. Now, he got killed last week on the play playing with that second and third team. My thing is, I wanted to see him with the first team, but now you're going to name him to the first team for this upcoming game, but you're going to let it be known that Andy Dalton is going to start the season. So you're letting it be known right there. No matter how well he plays with the first team, don't start saying that, see, he looks good with the first team. You should have played him with the first team because Andy Dalton is our starter. So Andy Dalton is the guy. So Justin's going to have to wait his turn, but I think it'll be more sooner than later.
Yeah, well, you brought up a play that, I mean, opened my eyes, and I'm sitting there in my living room, and I'm like, I need to get a screenshot of this because this is exactly what I was talking about last week when we talked about Fields. Andre Smith comes off the edge, unblocked. Justin Fields didn't see the free fire blitz, so he didn't call any slide protection. So Andre Smith comes off the edge, clean to the backside, and just cleans his clock, knocked his helmet off, drew the flag, but flag or no flag, that is a hit that you cannot have Justin Fields taking many up.
Learn on the fly.
I mean, even if it's just one is just too many.
Eddie, you know what with that though? And even though that happened, you know, of course, I mean, it can happen whether he's with the first team or not. It's going to happen.
It's going to. Their offensive line is not that great.
But of course, I'm still a proponent of learning on the fly. And even though that happened, I was like, okay, now you know what you have to do or what you probably should do in that situation. Hopefully you'll be playing with the first team. But I bet you won't be prone to make that happen again. It's happening on the fly. It's happening on the field. And I think you have to go through it. But, of course, you want to keep him healthy. So,
and he's
but
going
your point after that hit, the point I'm making is your point after that hit became more compelling. Yeah. I will say that. But I'm definitely a proponent.
You're hoping he dusts himself off. You're hoping he gets back up. You're hoping there's no freak injury or there's no concussion that's
going to keep him out for weeks and weeks.
Chain of every time he gets tackled, he gets a concussion now. I mean, we've seen that happen in the NFL where it just takes one good one, and now all of a sudden those screws up there are loose, and all it takes is one good hit, and you're out for
a long time.
A week, a month, a year. You know, we saw it with C.J. Fedorowicz, it's a promising tight end career here in Houston. You know, it's done. It's over with because of concussions. So I think that really they just want to take their time with him. They just don't want to get him killed. Clearly, if you look at how he's performing on the field.
Peter's coming back.
What do you mean? Oh, you're talking about that tackle? Yeah. I mean, but they just want to make sure. Like, I think that sack, I truly believe that sack was on Justin Fields. He should have noticed the free blitzer, and he should have adjusted his protection. They want to make sure he understands. You know, want to make sure that he knows. And on top of that, with Justin Fields, he's their guy, so it's their plan. I just want to see them. If their plan is to bring him along slow, then just like, I mean, you got to give all the credit in the world to Andy Reid and the Chiefs. No, Andy Dalton isn't Alex Smith. But, hey, it was their plan. They had a plan to bring him along slow. He was going to start the last game or so of the season. And, you know, then we're going to hand the reins over to him. And all I want to see them do, Greg, all I want to see them do is just stick to their plan. Because we saw here in Houston with Deshaun Watson.
Now we're realizing the plan, though, that they're definitely going to start Andy Dalton week 1.
Yeah.
I mean,
some people thought it was an open competition. I kind of thought from the beginning that when they brought in Andy Dalton that they were bringing him in to just keep the seat warm until they thought Justin Fields was ready.
Well, I mean, I think Justin Fields is ready in the sense that is your offensive line ready now? That's the question. But I think you go out there because against a team like the Rams, I mean, Andy Dalton is going to be a sitting duck. I mean, so I think Justin Fields really gives you the best chance to win.
But if you're going to have
as far as his playmaking ability, and as far as him being able to evade and elude the rush. Now the reason I'm not just all like, because he's the coach and that's what they're going to do. Okay, cool. I mean, I know Justin Fields is going to eventually be the starter a lot more sooner than later, but it's all going to hinge. Now, since Andy Dalton is going to start week 1, what we do know is it's going to hinge on their win-loss record. Because if Andy Dalton, or unless he just goes out there, of course, you know, the Chicago fans, of course, they're booing Andy Dalton for no good reason. I like Andy Dalton. I like him as a backup, and he's going to be a backup. But I can see Andy Dalton for a game or two. Like, that's not something that's so surprising to me that Justin Fields is not going to start the first game. I mean, my point is I think he should play more sooner than later, and I don't think you sit him out the entire season. That's been my point from day one.
No.
But it's never really hinged on, okay, start day 1. I mean, I would have liked that, of course, but it's not surprising to see Andy Dalton go out there for week 1. Now, if they get out to a 1-0 record and then 2-0, now that may keep Justin on the bench more longer than, because then Matt Nagy can say, see, I'm doing it my way. I'm doing it this way.
Yeah.
My way is working. So we'll see.
No, I think that's going to be the plan. I have no confirmation on this, but I believe that they probably want to get Andy Dalton through at least 6 to 8 games.
Ooh, man.
And while they keep Justin Fields preparing as the backup, learning, getting ready. There's a lot that's going to go into it. There's a lot of analytics that'll tell you that a player that's played college football, you know, this is going to be the longest NFL season in the history of the NFL in 17 games. Mm-hmm. So what is it going to hurt? You know, the team probably isn't going to make the playoffs. And even if they did, Justin's going to need another year to develop. I'm willing to bet. Now, here's where I was saying I don't have any guarantees on this. But I'm willing to bet he's already got it from the big brass in the front office that, hey, we understand that Justin is the guy. You don't put him out there till he's ready, because if you put him out there before he's ready and you ruin this pick, we're going to ruin you.
But he's ready now is what most people think. I mean, now, is your offensive line ready is the question, but are they ready to protect Andy Dalton as well? And is that going to give you your best chance to win the ball game?
Good, but like if this is their plan, I want to see them stick to it, because we heard
he's not a seasoned vet, of course.
We heard all this stuff from Bill O'Brien about Deshaun Watson and how he was going to hold the clipboard.
What was the score in that preseason game? What was going in that preseason game before?
It was week 1.
And I like Andy Dalton. I'm talking about last preseason game when, actually the play that Andy Dalton had now before that, and I'm not putting this on Andy Dalton. I watched the first quarter of that game, and, obviously they couldn't move the ball really, but the defense was trash that game, that day as well. But I think when Justin Fields got in the game, what were they down, like 41-6 or something to that effect? And he got in with the second and third team, and so but you still see the plays that he can make. I want to see him with the first team. I think that's why they want to see him with the first team this week and see how he looks and really see how long they really plan on keeping him out. But it's all going to hinge on what Andy Dalton does during the regular season. Now, again, it's not surprising. It's Andy Dalton, a guy that's been to the Pro Bowl, and so we shall see. So it's not like I'm sitting there going against Andy Dalton. But I just hope it works out. Matt Nagy is a guy that if he doesn't win this year, so he has to make sure he calls the shots right.
I don't think
and it's not a posturing type of deal. And if he's seeing anything in practice, again, I think a lot of that is him promising Andy Dalton that he was going to be the starting quarterback and him holding serve on that, holding tight on that, also staying firm that he's not going to acquiesce to the demands of the media. And he's just going to see what Andy Dalton gives him the first couple of games and see what happens. But I don't think he's averse to playing Justin Fields by no means if it came down to it. I just think he's leaning more that way because of those reasons and
I mean,
like you said, other reasons. Of course they want to see how Justin continues to progress.
Well, because you've seen it in the past. Richard Johnson chiming in. They're afraid he'll wind up like RG. Maybe they're afraid that he'll wind up like RG3, which we've seen a guy get beat up whenever they were just put out there before.
You've seen the other side of it too, though.
Yeah, before RG3 was completely ready. He had a little bit more developing to do, had to learn how to play and protect himself. He didn't do that, and his career went a completely different direction than it looked like it was going to go the entire first 3 quarters of that season. And then the same thing with Deshaun, where the Texans had this plan to bring him along slowly, and then 2 quarters into the first game of the season, Deshaun Watson's in there, and it's a coach's decision. He's going to start the second half. So it shows that you have no clue really what you want to do. You're just doing things to do them that way. I hope that that's not what we're not going to see from the Bears.
Right, because you know what they saw in that game?
Stick to the game plan. If
they
you're going to sit him.
Right, but they saw Deshaun Watson was the best player for that job at that time.
But also didn't. Took some,
and that's why I said they're going to let Andy Dalton get his feet wet.
He took some blows that he probably shouldn't have taken.
You know what?
The offensive line was terrible, and his rookie season was cut short. You can't forget about that.
Right, I got you. But you know what? As far as that, I mean, like I said,
did he bounce back from it just fine? Sure, but he ended up taking a serious injury.
Well, I mean, yeah, but you know what?
That's part of the game. I get it.
It's the game of football. Yeah, I mean, so Justin Fields has to be cognizant of the fact, like we talked about a couple of weeks ago. He has to realize he can't be as reckless as RG3.
He can't even be as reckless as Justin Fields at Ohio State.
well, that too. But you have to slide. You can't take shots to the ribs, and you have to slide. And so I think it's a lot to do with what I said as far as they think they can get away with a couple of games with Andy Dalton. They promise him the job. They're not going to acquiesce to the media hype. And if they can get more experience for Justin within those weeks of doing that, so be it. But if it happens in that first game or that first half where Andy Dalton has gotten sacked 3 or 4 times because he can't get out of the pocket or he's making ill-advised passes, I mean, we know Andy Dalton can throw the ball, but Justin Fields can throw the ball as well. So it's going to come down to, is your team putting points on the board? Are you moving the football? So we'll see within the first couple of games.
If the Rams are going to eat duck.
Because I don't think they're going to care about Justin Fields getting hurt.
If the Rams are going to eat duck on Sunday, week 1, if they're going to eat duck, I guarantee you the Bears would rather it be an Andy Dalton red-haired duck than a duck named Justin Fields.
Okay, I got you. But you want to win the game, too.
You do.
You want to win the game, too.
But I guarantee you, I don't care what my plan for Justin Fields is. I'm not trotting him out there week 1 against the best pass rusher in the NFL,
well, you
Aaron
know what?
Donald.
Play ball, man. Play ball, bro. Play ball. Hey, I got you. I mean, a lot of people feel like you. I'm like, Justin, get out there. If you play against Aaron Donald the first game of your career, I think your career should be a damn good career.
But the thing about it is he's not playing against Aaron. He's just running from him,
But you know what?
It'll be some fool named Sam Mustipher playing
Everybody
against
else have to help him up.
Aaron Donald. Do you know who Sam Mustipher is?
Aaron Donald's me neither. Don't get me wrong. That Rams defense.
You're telling me I got Sam Mustipher between me and Aaron Donald? I do not feel safe.
But again, I think that speeds up that learning curve, man. You go against a team like the Rams, and of course you're going to do everything possible to stay healthy, but you can get hurt against Jacksonville. So get out there and make some plays. Hopefully his receivers, because again, he's been playing with the second and third team, and so hopefully he has enough receivers on the outside. They have some guys that have some speed, but are they really good receivers? There's plenty of guys on these teams that can run, and you see them in preseason every year, and they flash, and you say, oh, this team has this talent. Look at those receivers, and then you never hear from the receiver again. Because when the regular season starts and they're playing against number 1 defensive backs, and these defensive backs, they need more than speed. They need technique. They need they need toughness. And, if you don't get off the line on a couple of plays in a row, or you're going to keep bringing it, they need competitiveness. So we'll see what kind of weapons the Bears have on the outside to go along with Allen Robinson and see if that running game can get going, because we'll see, man, because you have your playmaker on the bench those first couple of games. So, and I wish Andy Dalton well. I wish him well. Don't get me wrong. I like old redhead Andy Dalton from TCU. I love that. Hey, man, what about Tua? I like what Tua is doing, Eddie.
Yeah, Tua's looking good, and that's good for him. I know there's been a lot of talk about, are they really sold on Tua Tagovailoa, or do they really have their sights on Deshaun Watson? And I think I think that they got together and they just decided, hey, better safe than sorry. A bird in the hand, you know the rest of it. Okay?
Yes, absolutely.
And they've got a guy who was a highly talented, high prospect, national champion, and they got a guy who they drafted high. Why go and trade your future draft picks to bring in somebody who came into the league under the same, the same type of clout, the same type of guy? I mean, yeah, Deshaun a little bit bigger, a little bit better, I think, but there's no reason to believe that if you've got the right coaches in place that you can't make this prospect being Tua. It was all everybody's worried about his hip. Seems like hip's going to be fine.
Yeah.
So if the hip's going to be fine, you don't have to worry about that anymore. Then
if they can get Deshaun Watson on that team,
yeah, that would be
Come
great.
on, man.
But at the same time, you're going to have to mortgage the future for somebody who, let's face it, right now everything's still up in the air.
No pun intended.
And yeah, everything's still up in the air with him. You don't know how much he's going to play, if he's going to play, yada yada yada. You don't know if the Texans are even going to let go of him.
Right.
If you've got it, you have enough capital to get him, but do you really want to come off of 3 first-round picks, a second-round pick, maybe another second-round pick, and some players on the back end? I thought they were in it before they signed Xavier Howard. As long as he was going to play under a franchise tag, I thought that there's a chance that the Texans, who covet big corners like him, may say, hey, okay, let's build a package around these 3 first-round picks, second-round picks, and Xavier Howard, and now you'll get us to the table with Deshaun Watson. But as a whole organization, they looked at that and they said, why? Why? We've already shown enough progression that if we get elevated quarterback play, that may be enough to get our foot in the door.
Well,
and then we'll go from there and see how long it takes to develop into that type of quarterback at the NFL level.
Absolutely.
But to me, they just put their heads together and said, it's not worth the price, not at this time. If there was no off-the-field issues and Deshaun Watson, for whatever reason, wound up on the trade block, we'd probably be saying something totally different.
Absolutely.
But with question marks being there, even though, he's not out yet, with question marks being there, it just wasn't worth it for them. And so now they are all in on Tua, and rightfully so.
Hey,
I think there's plenty of meat left on that bone. I think they could develop him into a very solid, if not all pro, but Pro Bowl type of quarterback.
Right. And see, that's why I was going to go with that. I mean, Tua, in my opinion, obviously, if you can have Deshaun Watson on that team with Miami, the way they're ascending, with the amount of draft capital that they continue to have moving forward, and the way they've drafted, the way Flores is drafted, I mean, that's a team right there that's definitely on the uptick. And if you put a guy like Deshaun Watson on that team, and you just added Jalen Waddle, excuse me. And you just added Jalen Waddle. But one thing that I like about Tua, what I'm noticing this year, of course, Tua, he does, when I watch him out there, they say he's like 5'11". Of course, Deshaun Watson is like 6'2". But Tua does look like a guy back there that he looks like a short quarterback. But what I wanted to see from Tua, of course, was decision-making this year. And I really wanted to see, of course, he's coming off that hip injury. I was surprised that he even played last year. I commend him for that, for coming back from that hip injury. You're a guy, when you draft Tua, that's a guy that you can depend on off the field as well. He's a guy that can be the leader of your franchise, and you can count on him. Great character guy, great upbringing. And so you're not going to have any off the field, at least you hope, but you pretty much, from the looks of things, you can tell that you're not going to have any off the field issues with him. So he's a guy that can represent your franchise. And so then you take him that high in the draft, so you definitely want to make it look like that your draft, that you know what you're doing. And so, and of course he's talented. So he's a year removed from the hip injury, and then what you do, you go put talent around him. Will Fuller, who's already out with the leg injury, even though he'll be suspended for the first game anyway because of the carry on from the suspension from last year for the PED use. But you add a guy like Will Fuller, you draft Jalen Waddle from Alabama, who's from this area. I mean, a flat-out game breaker who could just score from anywhere on the field. If you dump him a screen pass. So you give him some weapons. And you have a guy like Jalen Waddle, he's probably going to return kicks, punts, even though they have a good punt returner right now. But Jalen Waddle is a threat. You get him the ball, so you give Tua another weapon. You add Will Fuller, who can be obviously another weapon. Then you have Devontae Parker, who can be a Pro Bowl type player. So now Tua has some weapons to work with. But what I wanted to see from Tua, not only the decision-making, but what I've seen is the fact, I forgot how strong his arm was. Because I always think of him as a quarterback, a 5'11" quarterback. But I forgot I mean, he got drafted that high for a reason. I mean, he can throw the ball around the yard. Obviously, he first got noticed from a long touchdown pass. They said they wanted to push the ball down the field more this year. His first his pass in college that he threw to Devontae Smith.
Yep.
His freshman year was a bomb against Georgia. So he can push the ball down the field. So what I want to see from him, I forgot how strong his arm was. He can throw the ball. He can make every throw. He can throw the ball down the field, and he can zing it. So I like what I'm seeing from Tua, man. I really want to see Tua succeed. I want to see Miami. I mean, I just want to see Florida succeed as well. I want to see everybody succeed, don't I?
Damn it.
But you know what? Not at the expense of my Cowboys. Don't get it twisted. Not at the expense of my Cowboys. I don't want your ass to succeed if you're playing the Cowboys, if you're in Jerry's world. Now, you can believe that. Trust me. But, hey, Eddie, man, you know what? And so we'll see what happens with Tua, man. Any other pro team that's on your mind right now?
Well,
what about Seattle, the
Vikings?
Seattle,
it's funny you brought up Seattle because I'm going to tie them a little bit into what I'm about to talk about now. But, you know, I asked you earlier if anybody had caught your eye, anybody that maybe nobody had saw, or maybe a player that's not a household name. And you brought up Callaway.
What about you?
For me, it's Bryce Perkins. Do you know who this kid is? Quarterback out of Virginia. He's third on the depth chart for the Rams, but he played a whole lot over the weekend in the preseason game. This is a dual-threat quarterback who set all the records at Virginia for total offense, passing and rushing, and 34 touchdowns. He was a starter his junior and senior year before being an undrafted free agent by the Rams. But I didn't have any idea who this kid was. But he's got a little bit of a Teddy Bridgewater-type frame, but the guy's fast. And he shows tremendous arm strength. I mean, he's zipping the ball around. I looked at him, and I knew because I hadn't heard of the guy or because I wasn't too familiar with the guy that he was an undrafted free agent. But just watching him play, he didn't look like that. So he's had a year in this system. He was on the practice squad last year. And then now, with all that playing time they're giving him, you look at him and you see a dynamic dual-threat quarterback. And this could be a guy that could surprise some people if he gets some playing time. Now, we know Matt Stafford's the guy over there. But you look at what San Francisco's doing with Trey Lance.
Oh, man. We got to talk about him.
You look at.
I like what I saw the other day.
Yeah, and even though I'll say, like, he did some things that impressed me, he also showed.
But I like his physical ability.
A lot of his raw ability. Like,
true.
He needs to learn how to put the touch on the ball sometimes.
True.
Especially
he
when
does
you're throwing.
Because he throws an uncatchable ball sometimes.
When you're throwing it with 10 to 15 yards.
That's true.
You can't send it at the guys 85 miles an hour, 90 miles an hour.
That's
you got to take a little bit.
I thought about that, too, when I was watching the game. They blamed it on the receiver. I'm like, man, he can't catch that heat.
But you see the type of offense that they want to run with a guy like Trey Lance. And you know that Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan, we've been through this before, same tree, yada, yada, same style of offense. And you see this Bryce Perkins kid, you're like, man, he looks like one of them dual-threat quarterbacks. What round did he get drafted in? You come to find out he's an undrafted free agent. But keep your eye on Bryce Perkins. I thought he played really well. I thought he looked like he fit that offense really well. And it just got me to thinking about, you know, how these teams around the league they're starting to change. You look at Zach Wilson. We talked about it earlier. That zone scheme with a guy who's got the legs to get out on the edge. That could be the new norm in the NFL sooner rather than later. And keep your eye on Bryce Perkins because if some injuries happen or some trades happen, this could be a guy that gets an opportunity somewhere, especially after learning underneath Sean McVay, a guy as smart and as good of a coach as he is.
Okay, cool. I'll definitely keep an eye on him, man. I appreciate that.
And just to tie that in real quick, because you mentioned the Seahawks, Alex Magoo, this is a guy that he used to be on the Texans squad, a guy that looks the part of a quarterback. He looks like that dual-threat quarterback, tall, lanky, he's fast, he's got a really, really strong arm. So I'm watching him in Seattle. He played a lot of football for them over the weekend. And I'm thinking, who's this guy? And then I said, oh, that's Mago. I remember him. He was with the Texans. I was like, damn, he's looking pretty good right now. And then immediately the next series, he gets flushed out of the pocket, tries to do one of them Russell Wilson center field turns, and clearly he didn't know where he was at on the field. He gets smashed by the defensive end.
Right.
The football flies 15 yards across the 50-yard line, scoop and score scenario for the defense. And you know that Pete Carroll is over there thinking, man, this is why you can't just look at what a guy can do on the practice field in a helmet and shorts and shoulder pads and think they can go out and play quarterback in the NFL, because a big mistake like that can end your career pretty much. But it's just funny because I'm thinking, man, there's a lot of young quarterbacks second and third string
at
guys. Yeah, that if the NFL,
Minnesota,
adjust a little bit, that they may end up being starters somewhere or playing some meaningful snaps. And I'm like, oh, this Mago guy, this guy's looking pretty good. I'm like, oh, wait a minute.
Right.
This is why I'm not a talent evaluator.
Well, I was just going to say.
This is why I'm not a scout, because Mago would have had me, and as soon as we got him in one of our uniforms, he would have made a bonehead play like he made then and there. So don't buy into. There's a reason why. There's a reason why. Even though he's got all the athleticism in the world, all the arm strength in the world, there's a reason why he's bounced around from here to there to this.
Absolutely.
To that. And that's because when you get him on the field, it's hard for them to put it together. That's what I was so most impressed with by Bryce Perkins.
Right.
This is a young kid. The only offseason that he went through was his rookie undrafted offseason, a 2020 virtual offseason. Even during the season, a lot of stuff was done remotely or virtually. And with just that type of, preparation and coaching over that weird year, he shows up 2021 in the preseason looking like he's prepared to play if they had to call upon the guy. Keep your eye on Bryce Perkins.
Okay. I appreciate that. I definitely will. I mean, hey, you know what? It's some talent out there. But again, you can't get too caught up in what you see in the preseason with a lot of these guys. A lot of these guys, they're going to go somewhere else, like you say, and stink up the joint, or you never hear from them again. Like the point I was making about the receivers. So, but again, wish all these guys well in their pursuit of what they're doing, and we shall see. But there are going to be some gems or some guys, like some diamonds in the rough that you probably didn't know of, that's going to show up this season. I mean, it's going to be a 17-game season. Again, I'm a traditionalist. I mean, that 17th game is a bonus for me. It's for stats-wise. As far as keeping up with people's individual stats. It's what do you do for the first 16 games. That's how I'm going to roll. I know. I mean, again, it may take me, 10 years before I really start counting that 17th game. But for the foreseeable future, it's going to be in 16 games.
I'm gonna have
but
to
it's
go
going to
get me a copy of that. The Guinness Book of Greg's records.
Yeah, it's going to be
only 16 games.
Only 16, and then maybe I'll come over to the 17th game in about 5 or 10 years. But no, seriously, so there's going to be an extra game that they'll play, and for playoff implications and things of that sort. But so we shall see, man. I mean, if you look at, speaking of virtual and speaking of COVID protocol and things of that sort, what about Cam Newton? Cam Newton, now he's out until I think Thursday or Friday, because left somewhere to go out of town or something, if I'm not mistaken, and took a COVID test, but it wasn't under the NFL guidelines, it wasn't.
Yeah, so technically they didn't count it, so now he's going to have to miss some time. But I don't think that's going to really slow him down too much. But it did let teams know.
Well, they say, Mac, mate, you better on in there now.
You better make sure that you follow the protocol to a T, because the NFL is not playing around with this one.
And he's unvaccinated. And we're not going to get into debate about that. But the thing about it, that's why if you look at it, hey, now I don't know if he's going to rethink that. That's his prerogative on that or whatever. But I don't know if it was miscommunication on. He should have known the rules at that point. So
well, that's
maybe
on the team. I think it's on the team.
You think it's on the team for not telling him,
to
to not alerting him, hey, make sure you get these done by the NFL.
Yeah, the article I read said the team apparently thought that it would be okay, but that it ended up not being so. So
he thought it was okay.
Yeah.
And so
the entire organization did, but
like the Crafts have done, they've put they opened their stadium up to, I think, 600 and some thousand people have gotten vaccinated there or whatever, something to that effect. And Cam is more than welcome if he wants to. I mean, the Crafts have it open stadium right there. I mean, the Crafts he's the guy that when all this COVID stuff first hit, he sent over to get over 1 million masks sent back this way. So Cam has opportunity if he wants to, because if he messes around and something happens during the season, he don't have to worry about Mac Jones if Mac Jones is going to take his spot, because Mac Jones will have his spot because Cam will have to be out for at least a couple of weeks. So Mac Jones is looking good. Eddie. And I don't think Cam missing these few days is going to change anything. Of course, Belichick made a statement, well, it's a great opportunity for Mac right now. I mean, it is, but of course, the way Cam looked in the last preseason game, I think Cam will come back. In the first game of the season, he will start at quarterback. But like we're talking about, Cam is on a short leash as well, because they want to see Mac Jones in there. Mac Jones is running the style of offense that they would like. He's making good decisions. He's looking the part. He's playing with a lot of poise. He's playing like a seasoned vet, and that's his MO anyway, even when he was at Alabama.
Right.
but he's playing like a seasoned vet. And you be in a scheme, if you're in a scheme like the Patriots and playing under a guy like Bill Belichick, I mean, you know he's going to fit right in. He's going to have the mental approach that's needed. And they like what they see in Mac. I like what I see in Mac Jones. I mean, he looks like a guy that can be the next Tom Brady. I hate to say that.
Well, when you see him in the Patriots uniform, I mean, it does look shockingly
similar to the way they spread the ball around.
But this isn't a knock on Cam Newton's intelligence or anything, but there's no doubt about it. Mac Jones is a very, very, very smart quarterback.
He is.
That's one of his number one attributes. When you look at the scouting report, they talk about a guy, tremendous intelligence, tremendous football smarts, tremendous football mind. You know that Bill Belichick is going to want that kind of guy running his offense. That's what he had with Tom, and that's what he's won with. He's going to want that type of player. Cam Newton, all the athleticism in the world, certainly works his tail off, but he's never been a field general type of guy. He's never been a type of guy that's going to get up to the line. Yeah, he's going to get you in your simple protection and all that, but he's never been a guy that can change things at the line of scrimmage, make these type of adjustments, really pick apart a defense like we've seen quarterbacks in those types of schemes do, like we've seen the Paytons and the Bradys. And I think they see Mac Jones as a quarterback who can do that, so they covet that. But they're just not going to, like we've talked about with all these other guys, they're just not going to hand it over to him just yet. They're going to make him earn it. And you got to give Cam a lot of credit because from what I've seen from Cam, I've really seen him work on things that he struggled with in the past. This preseason so far, I've seen him move up in the pocket without collapsing his lower body, which is something that he's done. And we see quarterbacks that are athletic quarterbacks do a lot. Russell Wilson does it all the time, but he's so good that he's able to recover from it. Deshaun Watson had to get out of doing that because it was costing him a lot of sacks. Whenever you feel the pressure, instead of stepping up into the pocket, immediately letting your knees buckle like you're going to run. And now looking at Cam, I'm watching him move up in the pocket, fire that ball downfield. He seems to be adjusting and making the changes to his style of play that they want him to make. I just don't know if he's going to have enough physically, literally physically, whether it's from being hurt or the arm strength, whatever. I don't know if he's physically going to have enough to hold off Mac Jones for the entire season.
Okay. Well, you know what? I think it's Mac Jones' job to gain more sooner than later as well, like I've said about Fields and blah, 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 blah. But you know what? As far as Cam is concerned, I mean, I really want Cam to succeed. I mean, I really do. I really want to see Cam because we know what happened last year. He got off to that great start last year, and then he was beset by COVID, and he never was the same when he came back into that offense. I think another year under his belt, of course, and he didn't have the weapons to work with. So I think I really want to see Cam have a fair shot to show if he still has it or not. And we know he has a different throwing motion that he once had ever since he had the shoulder surgery. But I really would like to see Cam. I like what I was able to witness the last preseason game and what Cam was able to do. So if he can proceed and build off of that game, and like you said, Eddie, actually show that he belongs in that style of offense where he can step up in the pocket and be more of a thinking quarterback and not necessarily rely on sheer athleticism. And Cam, he has to realize at this point in his career, not only the fact that he plays with the Patriots, and that's the scheme that they want to run, but, again, self-preservation at this point in your career. You can't be the Cam Newton right out of Auburn. So, of course, you can't be as quick to take off and run if you can keep your eyes downfield and find an open receiver. So I really want to see Cam have a chance to move this offense and get this team some victories. We'll see the defense should be better as well. And I think Belichick is going to give him that opportunity. But I also think, we know that Bill Belichick is definitely intrigued with Mac Jones and the ability that he brings within that offense. I mean, not only him, but I think the entire team realizes what Mac Jones can bring them because they reminisce to Tom Brady and what he was able to do within that offense in New England. Of course, you're playing under Bill Belichick, of course. So I think they're licking their chops as well to see. I think it's a win-win for the teammates. Like, hey, man, you know what? If Cam does this thing, we're good. Mac gets in there when he gets in there, but Cam is still the guy, former MVP, yada, yada, yada. So I think people are rooting for Cam, but Cam has to bring it. He's on the short leash. I mean, if he comes out and he's not the Cam Newton that they want him to be, or he's not moving the football, he's being inaccurate, or he's just not putting points on the board, trust me, Mac Jones will be in there more sooner than later as well.
That is correct, and we're all looking forward to that. Nothing against Cam, but I like to see it when the rookies finally get their chance to go. Whether or not we would do what the powers that be choose to do with those guys, but we're not the ones in those positions, though,
Absolutely.
are we? Whether we agree with that or not, that doesn't matter. I know I'm excited every time I see young NFL talent step on the field, whether it's at the quarterback position or any position. Man, I'm thrilled to watch and see what the kids got to offer and how he sizes up
if they're worthy,
the competition
right. Absolutely.
at the highest
if
level.
If they're worthy of keeping that job.
Now, we got just under 10 minutes left to go, so let's swing back around to the Astros.
Let's do it.
Looks like they heard the beckoning of their fans here in Houston. They're out to a good start against the Royals. Already 3 runs on the board. Astros lead early, 3-0.
Okay.
But what all do you think the Astros have to do to keep from falling into this funk? Now we know some of it's mental, but they still are out there. They still are out there getting at bats. They're out there. You're calling on your relief pitchers, your closers. Your setup guy in Stanek who had a rough night last night. These guys are still out there playing, so I'm not going to buy into the fact that they're just, not getting up for these games because
that's what I was going to ask you.
It's lower.
It's
inferior
should
talent
be at this point.
because
right.
But by now, if you give me
at
a
this
moment
point in the
just
season,
to pull
you
up,
have to be.
Just to pull up the standings so I can be exactly sure where the Astros stand.
At
this point,
they're 3.5 over the A's right now, going into the day.
Yes.
5.5 over the Mariners.
Yeah, ESPN has them at 4 games over the Oakland Athletics and 5 over the Mariners.
Okay.
Who've shown that they can.
So the Mariners won today then.
Yeah.
Because they were 5.5, but they played an early game. Okay, I got you.
Right. So things are getting tight, and we already mentioned earlier you play. I think it's 7 of the last 10 against the Athletics, and we talked about the Astros possibly being able to eat against some of these, inferior teams and build a comfortable lead. That's not happening. So what is it that they need to do? Is this on Dusty Baker? Does he have to figure out a way to get these guys playing at a better level, or is this something that maybe the Astros need to look within themselves and say, for whatever reason, and I'm not convinced it's the talent, they have gone through some funks this year at the plate and with their relief pitching that the likes of a championship caliber team should never go through.
I mean, that's just it. At this point in the season, especially when you're in a division race with the Oakland A's, and now you have the Sierra Mariners who are creeping up on you as well. I mean, they beat the A's today, obviously. So they're playing. So they're winning games within the division. So you have to. I mean, it's only 35 games left in the season. I mean, you have to know that all of these games matter, and you have to beat the bottom feeders. You have to beat teams like the Royals. You have to win games like that. So when you play those tough series and you may lose 2 out of 3, it probably won't hurt you as much. But you have to tally as many victories as possible against teams like the Kansas City Royals. Now, I don't know why they're not going into those games with the mindset like, okay, this is a very important game. Let's really concentrate at the plate. Let's really concentrate on the mound. I don't know if they're going in there feeling like that they can just, this team is going to lay down for them, but they should know by now, over the last few weeks, they should know that these teams are trying to win too. These teams are not going to lay down. So maybe it's just a coincidence. Maybe they are going into these games really amped and really ready to play, really focused and honed in, but these teams on that particular night have just been better than the Astros, and the Astros, you know how baseball is. That's the hardest thing to do is hit a baseball. Maybe on those particular nights, it's just been that those teams have ramped up the pitching, and the Astros just can't catch up to what they're delivering from the mound.
Yeah, I don't know what it is with these guys, but they need to figure it out, and they got to get it straight. Part of it is health, but
Bregman coming back, like we said.
You make moves like they've made over the past couple seasons. You sacrifice some of your depth. You've got to be able to withstand not having a guy or two here and there, even if they are big contributors like Gurriel and like Bregman, like Kyle Tucker. They got to figure out a way to weather the storm. And you like what you see from the young guys, Myers and the likes of the other center fielder. I'm drawing a blank on his name right now for whatever reason.
Are they going to make the playoff roster?
I tend to do this, I think he'll definitely be on there. But you like what you're seeing out of those guys, but ultimately it's up to the leaders to set the tone. When Carlos Correa is out there performing and he's making big hits and big plays and big moments, that sort of permeates and spreads throughout the entire team. But when you have, in crucial situations, you have Jose Altuve getting picked off on first. That just puts that puts a damper in whatever momentum you had, and then that sort of carries over.
But that's a lack of concentration right there.
But you expect better from the leaders of your team. You can't have Jose Altuve getting the final out of an inning.
That's total lack of concentration.
On the base path by getting picked off. That's something that you just can't have.
Right.
And so you have a negative like that from a leader in the clubhouse, from a leader on the team. And that may negate everything good that one of the young guys had done for the entire game.
Absolutely.
And you saw that, the
and it should be the other way around.
Yeah, the Astros ended up losing that game.
It should be the young guy making a mistake.
And then also, whenever some of these guys start to show that they're not having their control there, I'd like to see Dusty be quicker with the trigger. I know that you don't have a whole lot of depth in the bullpen, but if you see early on that, hey, this guy's not hitting his spots, or Maldy's like, hey, he's not hitting his spots, go ahead and get that other arm loose. Don't waste too much time. Don't allow things to slip away, especially whenever you get into these extra inning games where the rules are different and you're going to start with runners in scoring position. You can afford to maybe walk one guy, but you can't afford to walk two in that scenario. So I hope Dusty, I know he's set in his ways and the way he does things. I would just hope that he'd be willing to be a little quicker with that trigger, because so far I've been to games myself. I look back to the last A's series, multiple games where relief pitchers come in and walk multiple guys, and Dusty just keeps them out there. You can't have that. From every level, from little league on up, you're taught if you can't throw strikes, you're not going to be on the hill.
Right.
So you got to make sure that we're not giving guys free bases. And then one more thing, real quick, you can't have the bases loaded
and not be able to score a run
with one out or no outs, with no
zero outs.
And not be able to win that game. You're at home
against the Mariners, right?
Yeah. You're at home. You got to be able to win that game.
You got to be able to push that runner home. I was sitting there watching that game, Eddie, and I was like, and not only did the pitcher get out of that jam, 3 strikeouts, and then came back the very next inning and struck out the first batter. Again, like you said, you can't be at home with the bases loaded against a division opponent and have the bases loaded and not put the bat on the baseball to at least give the the guy at third, a chance to score on a bunt or something. You strike out 3 times, an offense that potent. It's miscues like that we're speaking of. And again, like you said about Altuve getting caught off base, lack of focus, lack of concentration. At this point in the season, the Astros, they need to be honed in on every play, every pitch, every scenario to try to win as many games as possible, because the A's, luckily for them, like I said earlier, the A's have been faltering and they've been on the descent and the decline.
Well, they do trip up today, but it's against a Seattle team that's behind them.
That's right behind them.
Right on your other hill.
Exactly.
And a team that you struggled against lately.
You're right. So the Astros up 3-0, like you said, so hopefully they can win this game tonight. That will put them up another game over the A's, of course, and of course Seattle will still stay where they are.
And while you're today, while you're playing, so it's 6 of your last 10. While you play 6 of your last 10 against the A's, in between there, you've got 6 more with Seattle, and looks like you've got 6 with Texas.
See there?
It could end up.
You don't want to be right there with it. You want some kind of breathing room at that point.
And then in between that, you've got in between Seattle and in the 2 series you have with Seattle. You got San Diego stuffed in between. There's no breather.
Right, no,
you slip up with Seattle.
And that's a team that's going to have to turn around. San Diego, they've been on the steady decline. They've been in the free fall and lack of pitching. And so they may not even make the wild card. They may not make the playoffs right now. So, but you're going to have a team like San Diego who's fighting for their lives.
Yeah, you come into that series stinking and smelling putrid, as you like to say, from an offensive standpoint particularly. And they are certainly capable of taking you to the woodshed.
Absolutely. It's the Padres, a team that a lot of people thought could probably make the World Series this year. But the Dodgers are still being the Dodgers. Like I said earlier, the Giants, of course, the Yankees, the Red Sox, the Rays. The White Sox, what a job Tony La Russa has done. Now, people can say that they hadn't played. They are not really, really good against real good teams. Hey, but it is what it is. The White Sox are way in first place in their division. But what about the Orioles, man? 38 games back. Is that sad to see or what? Those got 38. Eddie, think about that. They're in the toughest division in baseball, probably, with the Rays. Again, people don't even talk about the Rays, man. The Rays are just, I mean, they're 4 games over the Yankees.
You play everybody, you know.
Yeah, I mean, 38 games, so they're playing all those teams. I mean, but 30, they're on a 19-game losing streak or something like that. 17.
How many times the Astros lost to them this season, too?
Yeah, that's the question right there. Now, if the Astros play the Orioles and lose, then we'll really have to question their mentality. But shout out to Miguel Cabrera, been the 28th member of the 500 Home Run Club. Great player, 19-year vet, 13th. Hit his 13th of the year the other day, Eddie. 38 years old, 2-time former MVP, Triple Crown winner. I mean, Miguel Cabrera started out with the Florida Marlins in their 2003 World Series, was an integral part of that team. Of course, you know what he's done with the Detroit Tigers. So Miggy at 38 years old is still getting it done. Not the hitter that he once was, but joined that 500 home run club the other day. So congratulations to him. Just wanted to give a shout out to Miggy. He's still going up there shooting through the gap every now and then. And with somebody, I don't know if Mike Trout is coming back this year, but will somebody please free Mike Trout from the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim? Free Mike Trout. Seriously.
Hey, we can close on that one,
Let's
man.
roll,
Get him
man.
out of there,
Let's
dude.
roll.
Get him out of there.
Hey, we will see y'all next Tuesday. Eddie, great job as always. See you next Tuesday, my friend.
And don't forget, I mentioned to you guys last week, this Friday, Luke Memorial Golf Tournament, Eagle Point. Get out there at noon. Plenty of giveaways, silent auction, supporting a good cause. Go support the fellow members of your community at a charity event. Get out there, guys. It's going to be a good time.
Please do that. Hey, until next Tuesday, legends live and let live.
And we'll see y'all later. Have a good night.